This is NHK World Japan. We bring you the news from Radio Japan on Tuesday, October 8th. I'm Fumiko Konoye.
And I'm Hiroko Kitadai.
In our top stories, Japan has lodged a protest against North Korea over a collision between one of its patrol ships and a North Korean fishing boat in Japan's exclusive economic zone.
Japan's Board of Audit says it has found flawed government communication lines for nuclear emergencies.
And Japan and the U.S. have signed a bilateral trade pact. Now the news in detail. Japan has lodged a protest against North Korea over a collision between one of its patrol ships and a North Korean fishing boat in Japan's exclusive economic zone. The two ships collided in the Sea of Japan off the Noto Peninsula in Ishikawa Prefecture on Monday. The crew members on board the Japanese patrol ship told officials at the fisheries agency that they saw what appeared to be a North Korean fishing boat in Japan's EEZ and warned it to leave. They said the fishing boat suddenly approached and came into contact with their vessel. Japan's foreign ministry lodged a strong protest through a diplomatic channel between embassies in Beijing. The two countries have no diplomatic ties. They say the collision is a serious incident. There has been a series of reports about North Korean boats that engage in illegal fishing inside the Japanese EEZ.
The U.S. disarmament ambassador has urged North Korea to make a decision on whether to continue talks on Pyongyang's denuclearization. The U.S. envoy in charge of disarmament, Robert Wood, spoke to reporters on Monday in New York, where he was attending a meeting of the UN General Assembly's Committee on Disarmament. The two countries held a working-level meeting in Sweden on Saturday. The United States has expressed its intention to resume talks in 2 weeks, but North Korea's chief delegate said the talks in Sweden had broken off. Pyongyang said it will decide whether to continue the talks depending on how the U.S. behaves. Ambassador Wood said the U.S. came to the table with creative ideas on how to address some of the issues and that he thinks it is possible to make progress. He added that the U.S. is committed wholeheartedly to the final and fully verified denuclearization of North Korea, and that it hopes that over the coming weeks, Pyongyang will decide how and whether it wants to proceed.
Japan's Board of Audit said it has found flawed government communication lines for nuclear emergencies. The technology is designed to enable communication during nuclear power plant emergencies via a TV conference system. The lines are meant to connect central and local governments as well as power companies through dedicated networks, even when public phone lines and internet services go down during disasters or accidents. The Cabinet Office provides subsidies to help local governments install these communication lines. 24 prefectures have the networks in place. NHK has learned that the Board of Audit found a lack of capacities in lines at Ehime Prefecture, which could lead to malfunction of the system during an emergency. The prefecture hosts the Ikata nuclear power plant. About 10 other prefectures were also found to have excessive capacity or had installed unnecessary equipment. The Board of Audit says the Cabinet Office has wasted more than 160 million yen, or about $1.5 million in subsidies for the program. It plans to call for improvements. The Cabinet Office declined to comment, although it acknowledged that it was being audited.
And the Board of Audit has found that the government spent $16.8 million on a cybersecurity system which had never been used. The government decided in 2015 to create a secure zone or a high security storage within its inter-ministerial information sharing platform following a massive data leak scandal. The Internal Affairs Ministry ordered for development of the storage that would keep classified information safe from cyber attacks. But a recent audit uncovered that no one ever used the storage since it went into operation in 2017 until it was scrapped in March due to high running cost. The storage without internet connection was reportedly highly inconvenient for users, especially when inputting data. The Board of Audit plans to urge the Internal Affairs Ministry not to repeat similar waste of money.
You're listening to Radio Japan of the NHK World Japan Network. Pro-democracy demonstrations in Hong Kong have been escalating in intensity, with some protesters attacking subway stations and shopping malls. The protests have expanded since a ban on wearing face masks at rallies was introduced on Saturday. Rallies took place across the Kowloon Peninsula late Monday. Some young protesters vandalized subway stations, while others ransacked shopping malls. Police used tear gas to disperse demonstrators who erected barricades and set fire on the streets. Hong Kong's government said the ban is aimed at preventing further violence and riotous acts. But the violent unrest shows no sign of ending. Disruptions are expected to continue on Tuesday as many citizens return to work following a 3-day holiday. Some shops have decided to cut short their business hours amid fears of further unrest.
Japan and the United States have signed a bilateral trade pact. It was signed by Japanese ambassador to the U.S. Shinsuke Sugiyama and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer in Washington on Monday, with President Trump overseeing it. This came after Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Trump reached an agreement on the pact last month. Under the terms of the deal, Japan will open its market to U.S. farm products to a degree that does not exceed the scope of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Pact. Japan will cut its tariffs on U.S. beef and pork. The leaders of the two countries agreed that the U.S. will refrain from putting additional tariffs on Japanese vehicles while the trade pact remains in effect. The trade deal outlines that Tokyo and Washington will continue to negotiate tariffs on automobiles and auto parts. Japan wants the U.S. to scrap them. The U.S. government suggested it hopes for the deal to come into force on January 1st, 2020.
Japan posted a current account surplus of about 2.157 trillion yen, or about $20 billion in August. The preliminary figure was released by the Finance Ministry on Tuesday. The figure is up 18% from the same month last year. The current account balance is a measure of the country's trade and investment with the rest of the world.
Japan and Russia have unveiled details of a trial sightseeing tour to Russian-held islands claimed by Japan. The tour is planned as part of joint economic activities on the islands. The 6-day tour, starting on Friday, will include visits to Kunashiri and Etorofu Islands aboard a ship used in a visa-free exchange program. Officials of the two countries say about 50 people will participate in the tour, including 17 tourists, Japanese government officials, interpreters, and medical personnel. It will cost about 300,000 yen, or around $2,800 per person. Participants will travel in groups in order to avoid any possibility of being put in an unfavorable situation under Russian law. They won't be allowed to go out at night. The tour will provide elderly participants with portable toilets in light of insufficient infrastructure on the islands. Sightseeing will largely consist of bus trips on the islands. Russian officials say it needs to be expanded to include trekking and other activities that would allow visitors to enjoy the island's nature. Japan calls the Russian-held islands the Northern Territories. The Japanese government maintains the islands are an inherent part of Japan's territory. It says the islands were illegally occupied after World War II.
Japan Airlines will receive another warning from the Transport Ministry about flight crew repeatedly violating rules on drinking alcohol. The ministry will issue the so-called Business Improvement Order on Tuesday. It will be the second such warning for the carrier since December last year. That case involved a pilot failing an alcohol test before a flight. JAL said at the time it will review policies and tighten rules. However, that doesn't seem to have worked. Last month, a 58-year-old JAL pilot was replaced with a substitute at Narita Airport after he failed a pre-flight alcohol test. There have been 2 other cases of JAL pilots failing such tests since April. Transport Minister Kazuyoshi Akaba said the ministry will continue to strictly supervise each airline to ensure that safety measures are followed to prevent a recurrence of this problem.
Japan's cabinet has endorsed the country's new ambassador to the United Nations. Kimihiro Ishikane, who is 61, has been appointed to the UN role. He is currently serving as Japan's ambassador to Canada. Ishikane joined the Foreign Ministry in 1981 and served as Director General of the Asian and Oceanian Affairs Bureau and the Foreign Policy Bureau. He was appointed ambassador to Canada 2 years ago.
French authorities are expected to ask Chile to hand over a man who is wanted on suspicion of murdering a Japanese student in eastern France 3 years ago. Narumi Kurosaki went missing while studying in Besançon in December 2016. French investigators believe she was murdered by her former boyfriend Nicolas Tsebeda, although they have not found her body. The 28-year-old Chilean national has since returned to his country. French authorities visited Chile in April to question Tsebeda. A senior investigator told French media on Monday that a handover request will be made within days. But the media say Chile is highly unlikely to comply, citing a lack of evidence. French authorities are due to hold a news conference on Thursday to provide the latest information on their investigation and future plans.
The U.S. government has announced that ministerial-level trade talks with China will begin on Thursday. The White House made the announcement on Monday as the two countries launched deputy-level talks in Washington. The announcement said U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin will welcome a Chinese delegation led by Vice Premier Liu He. It also revealed that their discussions will not only cover agriculture, but also intellectual property rights and forced technology transfer. Recently, Chinese importers have been ramping up their soybean purchases from the U.S.
A move by the United States to distance itself from the situation in northern Syria has been criticized as an act of betrayal of Kurdish forces in the region. The U.S. announced that it will not support or be involved in a military operation, which it said Turkey will soon launch into northern Syria. The announcement came after a phone call on Sunday between President Trump and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The move drew criticism from Kurdish forces in northern Syria, who have long been allied with the U.S. in the fight against Islamic State militants. Turkey views the Kurdish militias as terrorists and has threatened to drive them out. But a U.S. presence in the region has until now discouraged Turkey from doing so. On Monday, Trump suggested withdrawing U.S. troops from the area. A spokesperson for the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces criticized the U.S. decision.
Meanwhile, Trump has threatened to destroy Turkey's economy if the country attacks Kurdish forces. He said on Monday that the U.S. was not siding with anybody. He added that he has told Turkey that if it does anything outside of what the U.S. thinks is humane, the country could suffer the wrath of an extremely decimated economy. Trump also defended the decision to withdraw troops from the area, saying it was meant to protect U.S. soldiers. He said the U.S. only has 50 people in the area and that he doesn't want anything bad to happen to them. Trump said the U.S. military has served like a police force in Syria, which it is not. He added that he intends to fulfill his campaign promise to bring troops home. And that was the news from Radio Japan of the NHK World Japan Network. I'm Hiroko Kitadai.
I'm Fumiko Konoye.